Hello, welcome to the next edition of our podcast, and again from the Podcast Summit in London. And we are together now with Pascal, and Pascal is from Alcatel-Lucent.
Yeah.
Maybe you can introduce yourself a bit.
Yes, I'm Pascal Roobrouck from Alcatel-Lucent in Antwerp, and I'm part of the University of Alcatel-Lucent, so the employee training university.
Okay, and we saw a very interesting presentation of yours whereby you use podcasting for internal purposes. Can you explain very short what you did?
Yes, so we wanted to make a podcast because we think it's a useful medium to bring messages, and we want to bring two kinds of messages with that. First, we want to be informative, so bring people information and learn new things. And second, we want to be a little bit entertaining, so make people feel good and make people feel as if they belong to one company. And so we've designed a format that brings those two things together. So we have some 4 sections in the podcast, and the first sections are more information, and the last sections are more entertaining.
And how did you start with this process? What was the originator of this?
So we had the idea of making a podcast, but of course there is hundreds of directions that you can go with that. So we've done a brainstorm with a team of about 5 to 6 people that had already listened to other podcasts and that had some creative ideas, let's say. And from this brainstorming of those 5-6 people, we collected really hundreds of ideas, and then we structured all those ideas. And out of the structuring came basically the format that we've developed, and also already a lot of starting ideas for content in that format.
And if you look to the implementation, what were, let's say, the hassles you had to overtake?
So the easy thing was the technical part, because we did a trial edition where we did the recording, the mixing, and selecting the hardware and the software that you need for that. So basically for us that was very simple. A simple USB microphone and a laptop is all that we need for the recording, and some freeware software to do the mixing and the editing. The hardest part for us is to find people with the right message to tell. A lot of people have something interesting to tell, but they don't come to that. They don't come to you with that message themselves. You have to find them. You have to search for them, and second, you have to somehow grab that message in an entertaining way. So it should be a little bit prepared, but not too much prepared. If you prepare too much, it will become reading out a text and not really spontaneous, the kind of style that you want inside a podcast.
And how much time, let's say, on average per week or per month, are you busy with this podcast series?
So the length of the podcast that we create is about 15 minutes. And to do that, it contains 4 interviews typically. To do that, we need about 1 day of production, between, let's say, half a day and 1 day. That means selecting the topics, scheduling with people to do the interview, recording all that, mixing all that, tagging it and uploading it onto the server. And we try to do that once every 2 weeks. As it is not my full-time job to do it, sometimes it's just less than every 2 weeks. We have 1 episode, let's say, every 3 to 4 weeks today.
Podcasting is a very new technology, as we saw today and most probably tomorrow as well. On board level, management is usually very afraid of new technology. How did they react to this initiative?
Well, yes, it's really new to them. Sometimes they cannot even distinguish the word iPod from the word podcast, so they mix those words up. but I had a rather good experience because one of the first episodes that we did, there was a story of a guy who was breaking into the old. In fact, we were moving from an old building to a new building, and some of the leftover guys in the old building, they were breaking into the room of the CEO and making it their office. And so this was also always recorded in the podcast. And then actually our CEO heard that episode, and then he came to us and he said, who was that breaking into my room, etc. So in fact, he heard it, and they were quite happy. And they're thinking of it as new media, and they want to promote it as well. Nevertheless, you see that in a traditional big company, let's say, there is often not a lot of people that know how to deal with that new media, and that's a weakness.
And what is your tip to convince that level in the organization about podcasting?
I'm not so much trying to convince them, let's say, at the top level. I'm trying to do something more at the floor level and creating good episodes every 2 to 3 weeks. And if there is a big audience listening to that, and if you can reach people with messages, then in the end they will start appreciating it. So my way is more like coming in from the back door, trying to make really good content, good podcasts, a lot of additions, and creating really an audience. And in the end, they will not be able to just ignore you. They will have to realize that you've done it and that you've created a new way of communicating, which is valuable.
Now, we have been together here today, and there's also a lot of podcasting producing companies, small, large ones. You are doing it yourself. How do you see the future of those companies in relate to companies who do podcasting themselves, like yourself?
You mean, how do I see the professional podcast producers? I think that it depends a little bit on the size of the company, on the kind of people that you have there. And if I compare it to websites, there is also a lot of companies that do website creation and website hosting and things like that. But typically, bigger companies have the means to do that themselves. If your company is big enough, and if your company has the right kind of creative people that are willing to spend, let's say, some time in their weekends to do it, then you can perfectly do it yourself. If you really want to have a podcast and you do not have any of the experience or any of the means or any of the people, then I guess you'll be forced to go to a professional producer, and this is fine for me as well. I see one drawback of going to an external company, that is the topics that you want to record. You really have to have some antenna to catch what's going on in a company. And this I can do because I'm part of the company myself. If it's an outside producer, they will need someone to do that job for them as well, because they can't catch what's going on, what's living, what's funny in the company and things like that. And that's the content that you need to spot, and that problem you have to solve in a different way if you're working with an external producing company.
Final question. You have been merged with an American company. Do they do already some podcasting over there?
Until now, I see that there are a few podcasting initiatives on the intranet, as we call it, so internally. There are also a number of webcasting and virtual classroom and so on. Indeed, Alcatel and Lucent both had some different technological solutions for all of these new things, and we have to merge them together. But really, the kind of podcast that we are doing in Antwerp right now, I didn't see any other instance of that in the company. So right now, we're the first and the only one who is doing that.
And how does it feel?
Well, it feels good, and it makes it easy for me. So to be the first one means that you sort of set the standard, or at least you start off the standard, and that all the others will somehow have to start from there. So that makes it easy for me, and it's a fun thing.
Well, thank you very much for this interview, and good luck with your podcast series. Thank you.